Hello there, humans, hippies, earthlings, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, whenever you're lucky enough to be doing it. So I'm Bushka on Blitz, and I'm back with another list. A list of tanks. People seem to really like these list videos, and this one will be no exception. Hopefully everyone likes it. Welcome to the channel if you've never been here before. Lots of streams, lots of giveaways, lots of tanks, lots of reviews, win rate, tips, guides, all that kind of thing. Follow me on Twitter at Bushka on Blitz, on Facebook, Bushka on Blitz on Facebook, or the website bushkaonblitz.com, which has a whole lot of hidden playlists, secret playlists if you want to go check those out. This is a list of my favourite 4 Tier 7 premium tanks. Tanks you can actually buy. And that's the caveat, and that's the reason why you won't find the Helsing or the Dracula on here. Because both the Helsing and the Dracula are not about to go on sale in the premium shop anytime soon. Well, God help us if they do. Because the game will be overrun. And it's not as if they're not strong enough already and there's enough of them out there. Everyone loves a Helsing. Everyone loves a Drac. This is the Lupus. Now, the Lupus is probably the best super heavy at its tier. Now, what do I mean by super heavy? Well, the Mouse is a super heavy. The E100 would be a super heavy, you know. The E75, the VK4502B, these kind of tanks are tanks that have big armor profiles, big bloody guns, and spend a lot of their time up close and personal. They've got guns that don't really work at any kind of range. You get lucky, like you might have seen me firing at that Chi-Ri in the first part of the video. But for the most part, they're just used here, blunderbuss style, up close and personal, point the end of it into the nasty stuff, press the trigger, Bob's your mother's brother. The Lupus is better than most of the other Tier 7 heavies you're going to come across, though, if you have an eye for detail and you enjoy all aspects of heavy gameplay, because the Lupus can hull down like an absolute monster, and that's the thing that people don't use this tank for. When I did a review of this tank and said it's just brutally overpowered, and it is, people came back and said, I bought it, you're full of it, you made me waste my money and everything. And I'd really like you guys who had troubles with it to watch this video in particular, and realize that you just saw me there brawling and side scraping and angling and bouncing shots up close and personal, shoving the front end of my tank into the other tank and making them miss shots because they either can't get the gun down or they can't find it's an auto bounce angle. This is the part that people miss about the Lupus. It is one of the best possible tanks you can get hull down in the game, pound for pound. It's got 12 degrees of gun depression on a rear mounted turret. That means you nearly never expose any of your upper glacis to get shots off. Look at this. I could get the gun down so much further than that, and I'm in absolutely no way, shape or form going to take damage back. This poor old ARL and KV2, they're looking at a tiny little bit of turret. I don't even have to go up. All they can see is this tiny little bit of turret. And because I'm at an angle, it actually slopes much harder than it would be if I was on a flat surface, and it bounces a hell of a lot more. And this is where the Lupus has that utility factor I talked about. You can push into town on desert sands or on Oasis Palms and side scrape, or even on Port Bay here, or you can use it to ridge fight and hill fight. I mean, 12 degrees of gun depression is legitimately stupid, and it defies the laws of physics, because if you look at the gun, if it had 12 degrees of gun depression, the back end of the gun, the breech, should be going up through the top of the tank. Like, it's literally poking down that far. And it does have this weird thing where you don't get any gun elevation, really. The gun elevation is tragic. But for all that, like, you can certainly live with it. And this is where people miss the joy of the Lupus. You can get this thing out onto a hill or a ridge, like the middle of Dead Rail, or the dunes on Oasis Palms, or any of those areas, even Mirage, because you do see that at Tier 7. And you can do all kinds of crazy, nutty stuff, just like I'm doing here. And you can see there's that gun elevation thing. Doesn't have any gun elevation. Very interesting. So I had to back up to get that shot. And we're just blowing hit points here to actually get damage in at the end of the game. It's no big deal. That's the Lupus, and it is really my pick for the best premium heavy money can buy at this tier. The M6A2 E1 is a very, very good tier 7 heavy as well, but it doesn't have nearly the durability or utility that the Lupus has, with the ability to brawl, side scrape, and still be fairly low profile while it does it, as well as go absolutely gorgeously hull down and take no love back. Number 2 on the list of my favourite Tier 7 premiums is the T-3485 Rudy. Now, I've been desperate to get Juju, Scumbag Juju, good mate of mine. Nick's been driving this thing forever. Whenever we platooned, I would say, what do you want to drive at Tier 7? And he'd say, the Rudy. And he'd jump in it. And Swiss Cheezel also was another one that tried to convert me to the Rudy ages ago. Took me a long while, but I finally got there. And I realise now just how effective this thing is. This is another tank that offers a little bit of everything. It's got 8 degrees of gun depression and about 2,700 damage per minute. And what that means is you can burn stuff down. But there's a catch with the Rudy. Say the Comet, for instance, or the Panther, or any of those tanks. They have high DPM numbers, DPM being damage per minute, right? And that's great. But they have a 160 alpha gun. That means they have to take a shot about 20% more often than the Rudy does to put out nearly the same damage number. And why is that a good thing? It means if you only get the opportunity to fire one shot, you've got a chance, because you've got an 85mm gun, of doing a 200 alpha shot like that, and then pulling in, and then hiding and resetting your camo, and then going out and peeking and booming again. Now, 200 alpha might not sound like a lot, but you're talking about a tier where there's a lot of tanks with 1,000 to 1,200 hit points. And that means that a 200 alpha shot is basically going to take 20% of the hit point pool of any same tier medium tank or light tank. And that means it's a really, really effective weapon. Far more effective than a 75mm and far more interesting in terms of its armor profile than most of the other medium and light tanks you get at this tier. Like the T-43 or the T-34-1, it's a tank that has a turret mounted right up near the front. Why is that interesting? Because what it allows you to do is pop out, expose a very, very small amount of your tank, and then pop back in if you are peeking and booming. Now, I try and do that here, but woe betide me, because I actually try and do it to a Tiger P. And the Tiger P at the present in this game is in its fully buffed Talons out state prior to the nerfs of patch 4.7, where they declawed it just a touch and gave it a little less DPM. It was insanely ridiculous, the DPM on it. And you can see here, the Rudy in the old days had no problems poking on a Tiger P. Since patch 4.3 or 4.4, the Tiger P basically gets slightly more DPM than the Rudy with a bigger alpha gun. So it basically fires at the same rate of fire, which means you go out, you peek, you try and boom, and you get pegged. Now you can see I'm thinking he's looking at the KV-1S, so I can get a shot off. But look at it. This thing's ridiculous. Oh my God, the Tiger P. Get wrecked. I'm not going out again. I'll let the KV-1S actually take a few. That'd be good. And then we go and finish him off. What about the gun depression? Well, the gun depression is another thing that's really cool with this tank. The gun depression isn't amazing. It's 8 degrees. It's not even close to the 12 of the big boy, the Lupus that I was showing you earlier. Or, you know, the 10s or the Cromwell B, which has crazy gun depression too. It's not nearly where those tanks are. But 8 degrees is the same as, say, an E5 or an M48A1 Patton or one of those tanks that can make a living and get shots off quite convincingly and quite comfortably. Now, why do I say get shots off? Because surely if you can see a target and press the button, that's just as good as getting a shot off with any tank, regardless of your gun depression. One of the biggest problems people have is they look just at the raw stats. Now, a T62A, for instance, has just about the best DPM you can buy. It's certainly the highest DPM kind of thing for a medium tank in the game. The Leo 1, the Object 140, they're all about the same. But it's got 5 degrees of gun depression. So when you're on a hill and someone's underneath you, if they're in a position there where you'd need 6 degrees of gun depression to get the shot off, then you don't have any DPM for that target at all. Likewise, if you need 7 or 8, you are going to have to expose yourself by going over the top of the hill to get your shot. So it's very, very simple stuff. But the Rudy has 8 degrees. That means unless it's a really crazy high gun depression area, most times when you peek out, if you hit a bump or a berm, it's not going to stop you from getting a shot off. Now, this is what I was talking about before. See how the turret is really close to the front of the tank? That allows me to duck out, take shots really quickly, and pull back pull back very, very comfortably without exposing a lot of my tank, because the upper glacis is also quite steeply angled upwards. You can see this VK2801, he wants to get a shot. We just keep angling and angling and angling, and we eventually get the kill as he tries to go around that corner. And then we're back into it again, that ARL over there. We're going to poke, pop, boom, back, peek, a boom. That's the style. That's the way you want to play this tank. That's the way you want to play most tanks when you don't want to make trades. Now, making trades is all well and good, and by making trades, I mean trading your hit points for their hit points when it's a situation where you want to clear a gun, and it's really important you clear that gun, so you will actually be happy trading 2 shots for 2 shots, taking 400 hit points worth of damage, but taking a gun out of the game, say to when there's 2 tanks left and on each side. But that's not something you want to be doing at the start of a game. And having that close mounted turret, a little bit of gun depression, good mobility, and a whole lot of firepower means the Rudy is a great premium tank. And into the bargain, it makes plenty of cash. So if you want good win rate, good gun handling, good gun, you know, and a whole lot of fun with a medium playstyle, then the Rudy is probably a tank that you should be looking at when it goes on sale. In fact, it may be on sale fairly shortly. This is what I'm talking about, hit point trades. I'm happy to hit point trade one with that guy. I'll take 400 damage, and then I'll clear the gun. That's a really good hit point trade for our team, because that's a Helsing, and a Helsing is a ridiculously overpowered tank. And there's that nice, easy duck around the corner, pull back, gun right on the front of the tank. No great amount of drive wheel and everything exposed, because it's got that very, very steep upper glacis, and it's got that Russian playstyle that you're really looking for in most of your medium tanks. Now, people really love these list videos. I've done my most 5 overpowered tanks. I've done the 3 tanks I like the least. This is going to be my 4 favorite tier 7 premiums. 4 just an arbitrary number, but I figured that was a nice cutoff point rather than including a lot of other tanks that would have been very close. And I'm actually counting in my head here, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. I got up to, I think, 17 or 18,000 just there, so I knew I'd be able to get around and get the shot on the KV2. And he says, good game, good on him. It's always nice to come up against a player with a little bit of sportsmanship. Chipotle, you grub. Stop inviting me to the platoon. Anyway, onwards and upwards. Let's have a look at number 3 on the list. Now, that is the Type 62, or the Type 62 Dragon, depending on what kind of camo scheme you bought with the tank. Now, I had the Type 62 Dragon long ago, and it was even stronger back in the day when you could fire premium ammo. The thing that I love about this tank is that it's so sneaky. It's the only light tank on this list. And you can see here there's a stubborn Emil, that T-34 and 1, and me left. But because I am a light tank with super good mobility and a very, very good camo system, I'm able to sneak all the way around here to the left. Now, I know that Emil is somewhere over near the cap circle because I can see the numbers ticking down. So what I do is creep up here with my light tank camouflage. That means I have full camo even when on the move, pop over the top of the hill and take Disciple out. And it's lovely. You can see the KV2 is giving me a little bit of stick, by the way. And the stubborn Emil has this lovely little comment here where he goes, he's like a ninja. LMAO. And that's exactly why you love this tank, because it is this beautiful blend of firepower, speed, and camouflage. Light tank camo is brilliant and really easy to exploit if you've been playing the game for any great length of time. It has the same value when completely stationary and parked up as it does when going 60 kilometers an hour. And that's important because generally a tank has to wait 3 seconds to get its full camo value. Not to mention the fact, because the 62 is so small, that it actually has a good just standalone camo value, as opposed to a lot of tanks like the Lupus or you know, a few others. I nearly died doing this, but I can see, I've read the map, and I can see that there is a Vindicator, right? And I can see that their whole team is pushed up. Now, this is a tier 8 match, so there's going to be a lot of hit points on offer. That means there's a lot of chances to do damage, and that's all well and good. And there's guys pushing into the spawn. Now, they're going to set up behind this rock. This is the traditional modus operandi. You set up behind this rock over there, so the Vindicator that I know is in the corner can't take shots at you, and then you shoot back at the guys on the left. That's not what I want to do. What I want to do here is push hard into the corner, into this Vindicator. Now, it might seem 1,017 is a lot of damage to take, and it might seem like a little bit of lunacy to have actually shot so early, but what I was hoping to do there was make him fire early before I got to him, rather than pop on the map right in front of him, so that he actually would miss, because the Vindicator's gun's god-awful at that range. And it's very likely that he wouldn't have been able to hit the shot. But full credit to him, he snapped off the shot, I took my chances, he took his chances, and he got a great big hit in. Now we set up on the corner. This is why I wanted to get across here. It was all about this position. There is now 6 tanks, or 5 tanks rather, in the middle of the map, and me on the flank, and I'm in a light tank. Why is that important? Because it means they probably won't spot me even when I fire. My camo is such that even when I take the camo nearly back to 0, with this tank, it just won't get spotted. It's got such a low profile and such a good camo number. I'm now in a position where if I keep my head on straight and don't screw up, which is quite possible, I'm going to be able to put a lot of damage in. Now let's get to the gun. It's got an 85mm gun, and that's all well and good, and only 145mm of pen. Now that's the same kind of number that the T-34-85 Rudy has. But the Rudy has a 194mm premium round. The 62 Dragon, and no one really knows why this is, has 250mm of heat pen. So when it gets up tiered, even against big boppers like the IS-6, it can switch to heat and have an opportunity to pen. And because it's got such a lovely amount of damage that it's able to pump out, it doesn't suffer greatly. It is able to put out enough damage that really it's not that negative an experience. And watch this last shot, please, ladies and gentlemen. Hold your applause. The gun itself is relatively accurate, as you saw there, .339, 3.3 seconds of aim time, and again, it makes money. There we go, 57,000 credits on that one. Love it, wouldn't be without it. The last tank that I absolutely love and adore is the Predator. Now, I put the biggest warning on this tank of any of the tanks that you've seen so far. I think most of the other tanks are very straightforward and obvious in their playstyle. I've had more people have issues with this tank than just about any other Tier 7 premium that I've said is good. And I'll tell you, I have no problems with this tank. I played 4 or 5 games in it, got 2 masteries, and they were both solid 3.5Ks, and a couple of really high 2.5, 2.9s. And there's a reason for that. It's because the gun on the Predator is just stupidly good when it gets time on target. How good? Well, it's a Tier 7 80mm, and it's only got 1.5 seconds of reload time on the shells. That means in 3 seconds, you can squeeze off 3 180 alpha shells. For those of you who are wondering, that's 540 damage per clip, if you can do it. And 540 damage at this tier is proper damage. Not to mention the fact that the penetration on the gun is 165mm with a 210mm APCR round. There's 2 big, massive, big issues with this tank, and they are problematic for people that aren't good at planning and exploiting weaknesses in other tanks. That is, the gun depression is non-existent, and it's a very tall tank. So if people can get up close and personal with you, that can obviously lead to massive problems. The second one is that the side armor is god-awful, but the frontal armor is actually pretty bloody good. So you've got to angle up to other tanks at all times nearly square, slightly angled, but not massively. And you can see me doing that there. Even though I was on the Tiger P, I didn't turn towards the Tiger P to put damage in. I actually faced the tanks in their spawn and then started putting damage into the Tiger P. And it bore dividends because I was able to bounce a shot from the KV2, not take any damage, and put big damage into this bloke over here. And the gun is lethal. Make no bones about it, guys. The gun is absolutely bloody lethal. better dispersion than you get on the Dragon, which we just looked at, the Type 62. 0.323 dispersion, which is really good for a Tier 7 heavy. Like, there is absolutely no way around it. That is really, really good for a Tier 7 heavy. And 2,452 damage per minute, which again is another good number. And you can see me just keeping that angle and bouncing shots. And then getting out here, I'm getting stuck into that Jagdpanzer 4. That's a lovely little roll. Yep, clear him. 500 alpha, no problems. That's just an average roll for this big bopper. So, why do I like this tank so much? Well, it's got good armor, it's got an incredible gun, and it's got great DPM. It can play both as a Pika Boom heavy tank where you pop out and fill them with 540 damage really, really easily, because like 544 right there is stock standard. That's your average alpha roll. Or, you know, it can go and be hull down. The turret is a very tough pen. You can absolutely side scrape if you keep your angles very, very strong in this tank. That won't be tough for you at all. You can get good turret traverse on the turret, up to 43 degrees, so you can do shots like that. I adore this tank, but this is the one that I'd say, if you're a new player to the game, you may well struggle. For all that, I have to recommend it, because quite simply, I have so many good games in this tank, and if I mean, I'm running it solo, pretty much solo, 36 games, 77%, 2,000 average damage. I mean, how can you not like a tank that does that for you? And I appreciate that it's probably not going to be everyone's cup of tea. But for me, it is the Lupus, the Rudy, the Dragon, and the Predator. Now, the Predator, I know it's a heavy tank, but look, it's just a unique clipper. And it's the only one at this tier that has that 180 alpha round in a clip. That's pretty special. The Chi-Ri and that, they get a 75mm gun, 160 average alpha. This one gets that 180 alpha round. I'm glad not everyone loves it, because it just means it feels more special when I drive it and hand people their own liver. Because honestly, this thing is brutal, and you can manhandle tier 8 heavies if they're silly enough to let you Pika Boom with them and hit point trade, because you can do 540 alpha shots, like bang, 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 3 seconds, 540 damage, pull back and wait. And if you can get them on a reload and do 2 lots to their 1, that's well over the half their hit point pool. Vamoose. So that's it, guys. My top 4 premium tanks for tier 7, excluding the Helsing and Zdrak, because obviously you're not going to be able to get a hold of those two anytime soon. Look after yourselves. Make sure you stick around on channel and have a good time. And until next time, stay safe on the battlefield.